Okay, I'm back. I got some new additions to my list of things TNA can do to improve their product. I said there was more to come the last time I did one of these, so here we go. First off, and I don't think this is going to come as much of a shock to anybody, but one of the most important things TNA must do is have longer matches. Back when the announcement was first made that Impact was expanding to 2 hours, Dixie Carter appeared on TNA Today and she said that one of the main things this extra hour was going to give them was the opportunity to devote more time to the in-ring action. And for one reason or another, this has not happened. You know, the matches are not any longer than they were, and if anything, they've actually gotten shorter. And, you know, out of all the talent in TNA, the X Division's been hurt the worst by this. Because from day one, that division was all about the wrestling. That was all about that kick-ass, fast-paced, balls-to-the-wall, through-the-roof athleticism type of action. And now we're not really getting that much anymore, and frankly, I really don't understand it. I mean, you talk to any TNA fan, you ask them why they got into TNA in the first place. Most of them are going to say it was because of the X Division, because of the awesome matches those guys put on. And I know this because that's why I became such a big fan of TNA. You watch that Best of the X Division Volume 2 DVD, this DVD right here, it's upside down, and, you know, most of the matches on that thing are not from pay-per-views, they're from Impact. And just about every one of them got great time. And that was back when Impact was only a 1-hour show and they had amazing matches every single week, but that's not there anymore. I mean, there's still great matches, don't get me wrong. But 9 times out of 10, the matches just aren't long enough to get to the point where they start to mean something. I mean, for example, Impact on January 24th. On that show, they had an X Division title match with Jay Lethal and Johnny Devine that ended in a title change. And a tag team title match with AJ and Tonko, Team 3D, and the Motor City Machine Guns as the main event. These were easily the longest matches on the show, and neither one of them went longer than 8 or 9 minutes. And they were both interrupted by commercial breaks to make it even worse. And I know that sometimes short matches are necessary, I know that, but for a title match, that's absolutely inexcusable. I'm sorry. First of all, it completely devalues the championships when the matches are over that quickly, especially in a match when a belt changes hands. Second, you can't build up to any potential drama in a title match when you only get to see 3 minutes of it, then you go to a commercial break, then you come back, and 2 minutes later the match is over. If you're going to interrupt a title match, or any match for that matter, with a commercial break, you should add several minutes of time to that match just on general principles. And third, when you get a 2-hour show, there's no reason in the world why your main event match should be less than 10 minutes long. And that's not me being anal about this, that's just simple common sense. I mean, when people tune into a professional wrestling show, they expect there to be a fair amount of actual wrestling on the program. And when you're a company called Total Nonstop Action, and all the talking is taking huge precedence over all the action, that's a problem. I'm sorry. Most of the time, the matches on the show, on Impact, they're not made to look that important at all. And the stuff that the creative team is really concerned with is the stuff that happens immediately after the match, which usually ends up getting more time than the match itself, like a promo or a pull-apart brawl or an impromptu drinking contest or whatever. I mean, I really don't get why, wrestling has been so de-emphasized on Impact since the show went to 2 hours, because TNA advertises themselves as your pro wrestling alternative. That's their main thing. That's their motto. We are wrestling. Well, if you're a pro wrestling alternative, isn't the whole point to be alternative to the WWE, to be different from the WWE, to give the fans everything that those other guys are not giving them? Because WWE has emphasized sports entertainment garbage over in-ring action for the longest time, and their product is worse for it. And this is one of the things TNA does so much better than the WWE too. I mean, when TNA put their minds to it, they can put on wrestling matches that blow the WWE matches out of the water. So if you can do that, why wouldn't you want to make that a staple of your product? Why, instead of trying to out sports entertainment the WWE, which you're never going to be able to do, why don't you just get on a megaphone and say to the whole audience, WWE does not bring it in the ring anymore, and if you want to see what real wrestling is all about, watch our product and we'll show you. I mean, these days when you watch Impact, you're seeing a ton of backstage stuff, a ton of interviews, a whole bunch of comedy skits that a lot of the time really have really nothing to do with the actual show, and just more of an overall focus on the quote-unquote sports entertainment stuff than on wrestling, and you just don't need it. Yes, some backstage content is necessary for storytelling purposes. I'm not saying it isn't, but it seems like the TNA writers have kind of forgotten that you can tell a story in the ring just as well. Moving right along. Second on the list, TNA needs to better utilize its young stars. And this is sort of a tough one to explain because the problem isn't as obvious as some of the other things I've talked about. The problem is there, but you got to look a little closer to see it. On the surface, things look okay. You got Frankie Kazarian beating Christian in a ladder match, taking Kurt Angle to the limit, and that's great. Motor City Machine Guns get pushed against Team 3D, and that's great. And yet, the problem still exists. LAX, they're one of the most popular acts in the whole company, even without Conan as their mouthpiece, and they're on the sidelines doing nothing. Sanjay Dutt, he's got to be one of the best workers that they've got, and he's shown that he can cut good promos when he's given the chance. He's sitting on the bench right next to LAX. James Storm, he's being wasted in a feud with Eric Young about who can drink the most beer. And that's not a knock on Eric Young at all. I like Showtime a lot. But James Storm has proven over and over again that he's perfectly capable of being so much more than the funny heel who gets hammered all the time. And yes, this problem's not as bad as it could be. Yes, it's not nearly as bad as it was in late 90s WCW. But the fact remains, TNA, that VKM and Black Rain are still in our faces every single week. And in the last, 2 months, you have lost Senshi, Ron Killings, and Chris Harris because you weren't doing anything with them. And Killings and Harris got scooped up by the WWE to add insult to injury. And the sad part is that I really can't blame those guys one bit for wanting out. I mean, hell, if I was Ron Killings and I had to be in a tag team with Pac-Man Jones just to get my face on TV, I'd be pissed off too. Meanwhile, we've got Kevin Nash getting lots of TV time. We got Dustin Rhodes making our eyeballs bleed every single week. We got BG James and his dad getting pay-per-view spot against the tag team champs. Kip James is still getting a paycheck for some reason, and I just don't get it. I mean, you might be able to make a case for Kevin Nash, maybe. I mean, Nash has value as a character as long as we don't have to see him wrestle. But somebody please explain to me why we need those other people. Please explain, please. I mean, if TNA thinks these guys draw, they don't. VKM doesn't draw money. Black Rain doesn't draw flies. I mean, they might have at one point in their careers, but they haven't, in a very long time, and that's not going to change. I'm sorry. They don't even have value in giving the rub to some young up-and-coming stars. Because, frankly, the fans don't see these guys as stars anymore. They don't have any rub to give anymore. The fans see these guys as has-beens who need to retire and go away and stop taking up TV time that should be going to the young guys who bust their asses in the ring and have the potential to actually draw money.